concept is silly, ridiculous, it's a waste of time. They didn't want that's why they were so successful. That's why they got away. That's why they were so successful. That's why they got away.
I've made a living in very dangerous.
Thank you for being here with me, Dianne Andrews, in black and white at CPAC in Dallas, Texas. As you see behind me, there are debates going on for Matt Slack, who is the one who puts on this convention every year, he and his wife, Mercedes, and we're debating on the election fraud. This was a couple of months back, but they have found out in Arizona by doing a forensic audit that there are some ballots, over 150,000 right now, who did not have the signature verification because these absentee votes that were done in a lot of states, including Nevada, Georgia, Michigan, and they allowed people to vote, and Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, they allowed people to vote without a signature. That is like a third world country. So anyone who says that that doesn't draw in fraud or allow people who know they can commit fraud to go and do fraud. So whether you agree or disagree with whether there was voter fraud, you have to disagree with the process. We do not need to allow people to vote without a signature verification. That is without democracy, and that is not the American way. That is a third world country. That is the way Chavez down in Venezuela won. He packed the courts, he allowed people to vote without signature verification. So keep on with us here while we're here at CPAC, and we'll continue to bring you the latest and the greatest. Thank you very much for being with us, Dianne Andrews in black and white.
Ladies and gentlemen, a conversation since Black lives really do matter. Please welcome founder of American Cornerstone, Ben Carson, and from the American Conservative Union Foundation, Mercedes Slack.
Gosh, Dr. Carson, I don't think they really like you out here. I mean, isn't he the best? And you know what I always loved about Dr. Carson, and I had a great opportunity to work with him while I was at the White House with President Trump, is that he has a heart of gold and always did the right thing for the American people.
And I always refer to her as no mercy.
No mercy, that's right. No mercy against those liberals, right? Well, let's get started. This is, I think, a very important topic because we know Black lives really matter. But yet, the Black Lives Matter Inc., they've distorted this message. So talk to us about how Black Lives Matter Inc. has been so destructive in really distorting this message for the Black people.
Yes, interestingly enough, a couple of weeks before the 4th of July this year, I said on that extended weekend, there are going to be dozens of people shot in Chicago and many fatalities. And it'll barely get any mention unless there's a white police officer who shoots an unarmed black person. And that would be the only case in which to them it mattered. They really don't care otherwise. And why is it that the lives of black babies don't seem to matter? Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, made sure that those clinics were primarily in the communities of minorities. And she believed that it was prudent to get rid of certain individuals. She believed in eugenics. She was a hero in Nazi Germany, and she was the hero of Hillary Clinton. Isn't that interesting? And yet, if that was a conservative or a Republican and Margaret Sanger was their hero, then there would be a major outcry on the base of the news media. So why is it that there's such selective outrage in our society depending on who says something and who does something? You know, I remember at HUD, in the first speech I gave, I said there were many immigrants who came here, including some maybe who didn't come voluntarily in the bottom of slave ships. And they said, how could you possibly refer to slaves as immigrants? And then they found multiple episodes where Barack Obama referred to them as immigrants also. Oh, then it's okay. Such hypocrisy, and I think that's one of the reasons that the news media these days rates just a little bit below used car salesmen in terms of credibility.
But you bring up the news media, and I would say the left that are implementing these Marxist ideology in terms of the destruction of the nuclear family, where it's really the government that's in charge of your life. How has this impacted the black community?
Well, when you look at what the black community has been through, go all the way back to slavery. It was the family, the strong family units, and the faith in God that got people through that. They got people through Jim Crow, through severe segregation, through all the difficulties. But what really had a negative impact was when the government came along and said, there, you poor little thing. I'm going to take care of all your needs. And started implementing policies that were destructive to family formation. Those are the things that have hurt the black community the most. And now you have those same people. You know, they claim that the party switched and that the Republicans became a Democrat because they don't want to admit what they did, but they're the same people. And the same people are now saying, let's defund the police. Well, when I was a kid growing up, I spent a lot of time in the projects and the places where there was a lot of violence. The police were a very important part of keeping order. And if in fact you get rid of the police, who are the people who are going to be hurt the most? And you look in the cities that are run by radical left-wingers, what is going on in those cities? Drug addiction and murders, crime, poor education. You look at some of those cities, you have very few, maybe just a handful of people who graduate from high school who have any real proficiency in math and in the critical areas where they need to succeed. And then we have all of this talk about race. Everything comes back to race. How crazy is that? And I cannot buy into it because, first of all, I have tremendous faith in God. And what did he say? When you look in 1 Samuel 16:7, it says, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. And you know, think about that. Isn't that the same thing that Dr. Martin Luther King was talking about when he said people should be judged on the basis of their character and not on the color of their skin? Why would you judge somebody on the basis of something that they cannot control? Wouldn't it make more sense to talk about something that they do have control over, their character? Isn't that what we should be talking about in America?
Thank you for coming back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White. This is going to be a continuation of the Agriculture and Forestry show that we did part 1 with Dr. Strain. So come on and watch this. It's much more information about synthetic beef, about cows, about who's buying all the farmland in the state of Louisiana and even in the country. Come on back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White. Let me ask you about that spraying for mosquitoes. Sometimes I'm out in my yard and they're spraying.
Yes, that's right.
How
Right
bad
about
is
dusk.
that chemical for your lungs when you ingest it?
Well, go inside, but it's very safe. It's very small amounts. So the bottom line is they spray when they have to.
Yeah.
If they didn't spray, you wouldn't be able to live there because of the mosquitoes. We normally keep mosquitoes at 1% of less of what they would be, and we're always working to make sure that we minimize the amount of virus that they have by keeping mosquito control. And so that is done in the mosquito testing. That and the spraying is done by your local mosquito control districts. Now, in a storm, after a storm, if it gets beyond their capacity, then we call in the United States Air Force. We, as we in the government, right? And you got to pay them now. It's like $4 million when you call them in. But they will bring in 2 C-130s, and they will spray a massive amount of area to knock those mosquitoes
Have you
back
ever
down.
had to do that?
Twice.
Really?
Twice, yes. Yes, ma'am, twice. We did that after Ike, and again, we did that most recently after the storms that hit Lake Charles.
Well, people don't know about the mosquitoes. I did a
It's
show on that.
huge.
But they're the deadliest animal in the world, the smallest, and the deadliest because of malaria.
More people have died from mosquito-borne illnesses in the
That's right.
city of Orleans and the surrounding
Even Orleans.
areas
I always think of
than
Africa.
all other major American cities combined
Because so many. Because
over the
there's
years.
so many.
Feel-
Yeah.
But the exciting news today, now I know we're a little off script, the exciting news
Malaria
today
vaccine.
is GlaxoSmithKline
Yeah.
has released a vaccine that
Right,
is
I
now
saw that.
being adopted by the World Health Organization to vaccinate children in Africa against malaria.
That's right, I
now,
saw that.
35% effectiveness, which is a big leap forward. However,
Better than zero.
there's another one in phase 3 clinical trial that's 75% effective. More than 400,000 people a year die from malaria.
Right.
So that's a big deal. Been working
Right.
on it 30 years. So for malaria and for other parasitic diseases, develop vaccines to technology.
Right.
So if you look
Is that
back,
an mRNA?
no, it isn't. I don't think it is. It is a subunit vaccine, right? Relatively new, but I don't think it's mRNA,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
I'd have to study up to
Because
be
I think
exact.
they're saying they're
right?
going to use mRNAs for cancer, maybe cancer. Have
Absolutely.
you heard that?
Well,
Yeah.
you know, most of the cancer therapy is by modern immunotherapy. Tremendous new fields and new grounds being broken. So also
Well, 70% of dogs die from cancer. You know, my little co-host back there. So do you think
depending on the species, right? Yes. So they're making great
they
strides.
have the same things we have?
Yes.
Don't they? Most dogs, horses too. Do they have cancer?
Yes.
They get cancer
All
and
species.
diabetes and everything.
All species.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Each species genetically has predisposition to specific diseases.
Just like we do.
Right.
for
We have
cancer.
books that said genetic predisposition to diseases by species. So if you want to look at that sort of thing,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
professionals, we do that.
Now,
Yeah.
do you still practice veterinarian? Do you
Most of
go
what
see?
well, actually, yes, we have.
Does your wife still practice?
My wife does.
So you
yeah.
can go into her place and help her out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm there every week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the CFO, Chief Finance Officer
Okay.
for the hospital, but I also work with our other doctors. But we have a large practice at the Department of Ag and Forestry, Animal Health and Food Safety, Office of the State Veterinarian. That's under Animal Health and Food Safety there. So all animal diseases, all plant diseases, the auctions, livestock, white-tailed deer, whatever you name, comes under that. So the Office of the State Veterinarian. So, we have 5 veterinarians, about 28 animal health technicians, because tuberculosis, brucellosis, if you look at all the other disease right now, we're watching to make sure we don't get African swine fever. If you look at other things such as Ajicki's disease, many different things, salmonella, E. coli, all of those things that are potentially infectious to animals and to humans, that falls under the realm. So any given day, we're having discussions about diseases in X species. So I'm the one that has to sign those quarantine orders, and I'm the one that has to set up the protocols to deal especially with an invasive disease. So I'm very active, with all of the livestock groups as well as the School of Veterinary Medicine, and they run the Louisiana Animal Diagnostic Laboratory, LADL, on behalf of the department, right? So that's one of the many laboratories we have. So I'm very active in veterinary medicine. Most of what I do is what's called epidemiology,
Right.
where we look at disease rates
Right,
and
yeah.
that sort of thing. So we're
Yeah.
very, very active with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also in the storms, what we work on through the Office of Soil and Water Conservation is what do we do with all the debris? So right now we're doing as many beneficial use permits, BEPs, to where either one, the product is ground up and put into a temporary landfill where it can be harvested later.
On the coast,
On the
where
coast.
we're losing so much land every
Yes.
day?
Well, that's part of soil and water conservation,
Right.
working with coastal conservation. So the other thing we're doing is working on technology, and we're using that now where we mulch in place. So if you're on the backside of a levee, they got all this debris, you mulch it in place instead of hauling
Right
it,
there.
tracking
You can
right
mulch
there.
it right. You bring in a
Yeah,
machine.
they got machines. They got
Yeah,
all
wow.
sorts of things.
Makes it a lot easier.
So we're looking at all the different, technology we do. So we're very active with that, as far as dealing with disease
Mm-hmm.
and moving product and getting, rid of all that debris. So that's a big part of what we do. And of course,
a
the
lot of
animal health.
innovation every day in your field, it sounds like,
Absolutely.
on one area or
Wait.
another.
Where's the greatest amount of innovation? What is something every day you have to eat,
Right.
you have to drink, you
That's
wear
right.
clothes, you live in a house, right?
Right. And
The
you
great-
even work with like the pets' food, right? Making sure it's safe.
That
Don't you do something with that?
The pet foods come through our chemistry lab
Yeah.
under the VFD, Veterinary Feed Directive. So Dr. Jonathan Roberts runs.
Oh, I know Dr. Roberts.
You know Dr.
Yeah,
Roberts?
sure.
Well, he runs that
I had a
division.
home health agency. I got
so
out
he
3 years
he
ago.
runs that division at the diagnostic lab.
Now, is it
and that's-
senior or junior?
It'd have to be junior. This is
Yeah.
Dr. Jonathan Roberts. So he's a little younger than me,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
He's a veterinarian.
Yeah.
So
Wait a
this
minute.
Dr. Roberts is a veterinarian.
May not be. I'm thinking
Right.
about it. Yeah.
And so, we test, all the animal feeds, pet foods, all that sort of thing. There are very, very, very strict guidelines for that. And that is done at the Ag Chemistry Lab, which we operate jointly with LSU. That's where we do the pesticide testing, the fern testing on food and seafood and that sort of thing. We test for residual contaminants in crops. We do fertilizer testing. And that's where the marijuana lab is housed.
Now tell
in
me,
a
what do
sub-
they do? How do people get a license to sell
do what?
marijuana in the state? Are they all gone?
You don't, because only LSU and Southern can do that.
Only because it's medical marijuana.
Yes,
Do you
that's
think
correct.
they'll ever legalize marijuana in this state?
Yes, I think
Every
so.
state will be legalized.
Well, where we
before
are
it's
at now is that, as you know, in the previous Congress, it passed the Congress, it passed the House, and then the Senate. And so I think this year it's going to come back. So I think if I had to look in my crystal ball, I think what you're going to see is that it's going to be remanded to the states. It's going to be like prohibition.
Yeah,
Alcohol is state by state.
right.
So I think what you will do, you will see them take marijuana, cannabis, just cannabis, out of the Schedule 1, right, of the, the DEA, out
Right.
of that schedule under
you
the
can
control,
do it,
under the
right?
it's
Yeah.
called the CSA, Controlled Substance Act. And then they may make it a Schedule 2, 3, or 4, but they will then move that and have more of the states, because you have 35 plus states, probably now getting closer to 37 or 40, that have a marijuana program of some form.
Right.
Right? And that is in direct conflict with federal law. Okay? Because we had the Cole memo initially that's saying that the federal government, the Justice Department, would not prosecute anybody that working under state directives. But that was rescinded.
Oh.
And so now we're kind of out there in no man's land, but you have the majority of the states, really a super majority of the states, have some type of program.
But I'd go out to Nevada sometimes, to Las Vegas, and they just, on every corner, you got a place where people are in there. And, you see
So that's
older people and walkers
recreational.
going getting, and you see young people going getting it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know.
We won't know for
For
some
a long
time.
time what it's really
Well,
doing.
we won't know
How do
5
you
to
do
10
driving
years.
under marijuana influence? Someone,
Well,
is there a way to test it to see if you're too
they-
high to
Well,
drive?
actually, probably 60% of DUIs are not alcohol related anymore.
Really?
So
Marijuana, other drugs?
just whatever
Yeah,
it is,
whatever.
driving under the influence of.
Yeah.
And so your policeman, your post-certified policeman, right? That's why they do the field sobriety test. Okay. Now, even though that you may not have that alcohol limit, you can still be prosecuted for driving under the influence of whatever it is. Prescription
That's good.
drugs, prescription alcohol, whatever. So they are, developing tests that they soon hope to come out that will basically give you, a level of it. However, people act differently to the same dosage. Okay, that can be as much as a 10-fold difference in response to
Really?
the same dosage by people that weigh the same amount of weight. So it would be more based on your ability in a field sobriety test, I think.
Well, let me add one thing, and as I told you with Bill Gates buying, when I saw he had bought 70,000 acres
In Louisiana.
in Concordia, yeah.
Yeah.
And that, like you said the other day,
Yeah.
now it's him and his wife, right? And they were the largest
Landowners.
farmland owners in the
Largest
country.
owners of farmland in the
country.
United States,
Yeah.
yes.
And Ted Turner is like the third largest just landowner, as you,
That's right.
you talked about, in the United States. Is big tech seeing something? Why are people buying?
It's not only big tech, it's Wall Street, REITs, real estate investment trusts, and we have a saying, you just can't outbid Wall Street. So when these large farms come up for sale, and I'm saying large, over 1,000 acres,
Right.
then
And
they
so
come in.
Southern does manage small farms, less
That's
than
right.
1,000.
That's well,
And
that,
LSU too.
and small and
Minority,
minority farm,
yeah.
and they do a wonderful job.
Yeah.
They really do. But if you look at, they buy that up, and if you've seen a couple of weeks ago, farmland, okay, in Illinois sold for $19,000 an acre.
Yeah, I heard you say that.
Now wait a minute, I don't care what you're growing.
Was it near Chicago? I mean, it was
No.
farmland. How could it be near the city?
It's-
19,000
It's
an
not
acre.
based on what it's worth today.
It's futures.
It's what it's worth in the next 20. Number one, they're not making any more.
Right.
Right. There's less
Right. What did
farmland
they used
every
to
year.
call that when rich people, a peonage, when they always gave land to their
Yes.
children, very
That's right.
wealthy people.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
But you know, agriculture, and modern agriculture, and we are the most efficient in the world, but it takes the economy of scale now. You know, we were talking earlier about growing cotton. A new cotton picker today is over $875,000. That's the cotton picker.
Wow.
That's the only thing it does.
Yeah.
Doesn't do anything else,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I've seen
So
those
you
of
look
that.
if you look at to harvest sugarcane, the harvester, the tractor, and the wagons, okay? It's $1 million. That's $1 million. And that's one harvester, one tractor, nurse tractor, and wagons, right? $1 million each unit. So agriculture is big business.
But what percentage would be less of farms in Louisiana, do you think, would be less than 1,000 acres?
The majority.
Majority.
The average farm in
60,
Louisiana is
70%.
about 263 acres.
Yeah.
Average farm in the United States is probably about 4 something.
I saw.
know?
I read something that said that out West Coast they don't have a lot of water and they're not irrigating, I guess,
No,
properly.
'cause there's
and
no
they
water.
Were saying, yeah, they're going to be. That's why I was asked about the pill to take the saline, the salt out of water,
Right.
Because that would help so much with growing crops out on the West Coast, especially. And I know they've been working on that for years.
Yeah,
They've
there's
got
great,
to be close to
there's
somebody.
there's great technology
Yeah.
involving number one, ways to pull salt out of the land.
Yeah.
Right? Hemp does that.
Okay.
Cannabis pulls
Yeah.
salt and other impurities out of the land.
Huh.
So it does that. But the other thing is that these modern technologies where you've heard the term informatics, to where, there are soil monitors in the soil and they use subsurface root drip irrigation where they use just only amount of water they need, only when they need it, with the appropriate nutrients.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wasted.
Right.
So you cut down the total utilization and use surface water wherever possible versus subsurface water wherever possible. Because again, when you put surface water out over the land, it evaporates and it goes into the subsurface.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But that water utilization is a key, because if you look at where we're at today, we have to double food production between now and 2050. We have to grow more food between now and 2050 than we have since the dawn of time. All right. Now, you know what a field looks like. You know what a cane field looks like, a corn field,
Right.
a cotton field. All right, now,
So
can you
picked
double?
cotton, and they told me don't come back here.
That's right. Can you see doubling or tripling the production in that field? How are you going to do it? Right? We're using 70%.
That'd be innovation, huh?
We're using 70% of the world's fresh water today.
Don't they
How are you
expect
gonna do
9
it?
billion people in the next 20 years?
9 to 9.2. But yes, but after 2050, it flattens out. 9.2 to the year 2100.
What is
no
causing
growth.
that?
That's
Are
the
people
Rubicon.
dying at a
No,
higher
no.
rate?
No, there's no more resources to feed, clothe, house, and provide energy. That's the Rubicon. That's the Rubicon where all our science and what's happened with science, innovation, and technology, we've been able to overcome the increased growth
Demand.
using the same level of resources by our rapid increase in science and technology. But the year 2050 is the estimated Rubicon where all our science and all our technology cannot overcome the finite resources for the growing consumption. That's a very important line in the
So what do you think is going to happen to
sand.
the world in 2050?
Well,
Around that?
I think what we are expecting is that for sure that the European population is going to decrease. Between now and 2050, it's going to decrease. The areas of sub-Saharan Africa and India, you're going to see an increase. Here in the United States, a moderate increase. But when you reach that point, either one, we're going to have to figure out how to do things better, in other words, farming the seas, in the sea, or whatever, or population growth will stop. You'll have a couple that will have one child, right? And we're going to have to control that.
Well,
because,
China does that, right? China.
well, they just changed their policy.
To 3. I saw that.
Do you know why?
I saw that.
You know
Because they
what?
need labor, don't they?
They want to grow the economy. They're trying to grow population to grow their economy, but they're consuming more resources. So it's a double-edged sword there. So yeah, there's a lot of things going on in China.
Yeah.
Yes.
Including the slave wiggers that they have there in China.
But you saw today now there's a coal shortage in China,
Right.
And it's really jacking up the price of coal.
But yeah, they're just built, and they're building 50 new coal plants, and so is India, as they tell America, right, to reduce our gas, our coal,
That's
and
right.
all the hard fuels, and go because of climate change.
Well, you
but
saw,
they're not. China is not doing that,
and I
and
know
they're
you
not
saw
talking about
today, in the Wall Street Journal, and it was published yesterday, that the climate change causing a defrosting of the permafrost is damaging Russia's oil supply, cracking buildings and pipelines. And so when you start looking
Is
at
it going to hurt the Nord Stream 2 that Joe Biden let them and stopped our Keystone?
well, I think what we have to understand is that we have to look at every avenue and look at all energy forms, all of that, right? We have
I believe in electric, but you just can't cancel what we're using.
well,
coal.
electric's good.
Yeah.
Electric's good, but
But we still need
Well,
fossil
wait.
fuels, don't you think? Or what do you think?
when the storm hit, what did we have to get down to those parishes, right?
Yes. That's
Gas,
right. Yes.
diesel,
Right.
water, fuel, tarpaulins, right?
Yes.
Across
Was there
the world.
anything else that you'd like to leave? I think we've gone over your time and
Well, I just want to thank you for allowing us to come and visit.
thank
The
you. It's been
Department of Ag
wonderful.
and Forestry, we are the largest regulatory agency in the state. We do many things. Check us out. Go to our Facebook at ldaf.la.gov, ldaf.la.gov. Look at all the many things that we do. If there's anything we can do to help you, please let us know.
I think you're going to be surprised. I was terribly
Yes.
surprised at what all that
Yes.
agriculture,
We have many
forestry, and
program
medical
areas.
marijuana does. Yeah.
We have more than 24 large boards, authorities, and commissions, 44 soil and water conservation districts. That's more than 500 volunteers on those. And so almost everything in commerce we touch and we regulate.
And 640 employees, did you say?
That's
You've got
correct.
airplanes. How many boats do you? You don't need boats though, really. Too
We
many,
have
do you?
boats.
You
Yeah,
do
we only have a
boats, too?
handful.
Yeah.
We have a handful. We
You
have to
got
have
12
those.
planes, yeah.
Soil and water conservation, we have to have those boats to go out. Also, we use them for rescue, but they're
Right.
also going out checking levees and rice. And we do a lot of stuff just to kind of control noxious insects and
And let
that
me
sort
tell
of
you, if you want to
things.
hear them again, your podcast
I do a
comes on when?
podcast. It comes on every day, and you can get a copy of that at lfbf.org. Louisiana Farm Bureau Federation, right? The Daily Voice,
Yeah.
and that is Louisiana Farm Bureau News, and it's a daily podcast, and it's with me and Don Molino.
Okay, nice talking to you.
Thank
He's
you.
going to have me on the podcast, you all. I'm holding him hostage of it.